tuned into the hottest paranormal life show on YouTube, Into the Fringe, where we discuss lost civilizations, UFOs, cryptids, unsolved mysteries, megalithic structures, extraterrestrials, interdimensional portals, time skips, and more. Don't change that channel, because now you are leaving the mainstream and entering into the fringe.
Greetings, followers. It is I, Cardinal Sin, and today we have a very special guest, Mr. Terry Lovelace, and I will read you his bio. Terry Lovelace is a 6-year veteran of the United States Air Force, where he served as a medic and EMT from 1973 to 1979. He has a bachelor's degree in psychology with honors from Park University in Kansas City, Missouri. He completed a law degree from Western Michigan and passed the Michigan State Bar examination. His legal career began in private practice until his appointment as an assistant attorney general for the U.S. territory of American Samoa. He also served as state's attorney for Vermont Board of Medical Practice until his 2012 retirement. Terry and his friend Toby were abducted from Devil's Den State Park in northwest Arkansas in June 1977 while remote camping. They were both on active duty at the time. What followed were 40-plus years of nightmares, phobias, and PTSD-like issues, which continue to this day. In 2012, a routine leg X-ray discovered 2 anomalous objects in his leg. The X-rays are on his website at terrylovelace.com. That event was his catalyst to write 2 books and speak publicly about his experiences. For fear of losing his job and the respect of his peers in the legal community, he waited until 2018 to self-publish Incident at Devil's Den, a #1 Amazon bestseller. His second book, Devil's Den: The Reckoning, was published the week of Christmas 2020. It was a #1 in new releases immediately and was also a #1 Amazon bestseller. Terry has spoken at the UFO Congress in 2018, Contact in the Desert at 2019 and 2021, the Roswell UFO Festival in 2019, UFOCon in Dallas in 2020, AlienCon in San Francisco in 2020, the Ascension Conference in Sedona in 2021, and the Ozark Digital Conference in 2021. Since March 2018, he's been a radio/podcast guest over 150 times. And along with Terry, we also have Mexican Iron Man. Welcome, both of you, back to Into the Fringe.
Thank you very much, Cardinal.
Very good to have you here. Let's check our chat here and see who we have. We have Cosmic Squirrel. Hello. Gap Stargate is here. Brian Rizzo is here. Hail. And others will trickle in as time goes by. So let's go ahead.
I just got my own notification for the live stream, so it usually takes about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So.
And a great welcome back to both of you. Terry, it's wonderful to have you back, my friend. And really looking forward to digging into the second book, Devil's Den: The Reckoning. Ari is here. Anti-derivative Jill is here. And Cosmic Squirrel says, hello, my brother, Mexican Iron Man. So it is good to have everybody here. So let's jump right in Terry, I thought you had mentioned in your last appearance on the show that you have never undergone hypnotic regression and that everything on which your books are based are conscious, unaided memories. But in The Reckoning, you mentioned hypnosis during your OSI interrogation in 1977 with Brad. Could you please clear this up for us?
Sure. Since the event, I've never had someone like Kathleen Martin or Yvonne Smith, someone who's a recognized member of the UFO community, or I've got a friend who's a psychiatrist who could regress me as well. I've never had that done. The one and only time I've ever been under hypnosis was when the OSI interrogated me in August of 1977. And they did that regression there was a guy who was a therapist or something. He didn't carry himself like a military officer. He was a major. But he did the hypnotic regression textbook. But they also gave me a short-acting hypnotic called sodium amytal.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Truth serum.
Yes. From what I understand, they handed it out like crazy in the 70s and 80s. So it's a short-acting hypnotic. And I tried to resist the hypnosis, but there was no resisting the drug. It was just boom, you were in a different place.
Yeah.
But a lot of these memories I wouldn't have but for that session and recalling them. But I made the mental commitment that I was not going to let them erase my memories, that I owned those.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I did, because I think that, people that have an event like this, and if maybe it lies dormant, they can filter up and manifest in unhealthy ways. So it's a good thing that I have these memories.
And so, other than your debriefing, you've never been hypnotized or hypnotically regressed?
No.
Okay. So, what happened when you asked a friend in the FBI to look for your friend Toby? And looking back on it, why do you think things turned out the way they did? And do you suffer from survivor's guilt?
Last question first. Yes, I think I do. I think, I wish things could have turned out better for Toby. I had my struggles too, but I had a decent outcome, and he did not. There's it is part and parcel of the phenomenon that when a group of people witness something, you would think it would draw everyone together and they'd be like a band of brothers, or there'd be some tight bond, and it doesn't work that way. And I think it speaks to the level of influence that these things have over us. There's a great book by Ray Fowler called The Allagash Four. Mm-hmm. And it involves two twins named Weiner, a guy named Rack, and I forget the fourth guy's name, but there were four of them there. They were like the band of brothers. They did everything
Jack
together.
And Jim and Charlie and Chuck.
That's right. Spot on. And it was like the band breaks up. Everybody kind of went in a different direction. Even the twins.
Boy, do I know about that.
Yeah, and it's common. Who filled me in on that was Robert Hastings, who wrote the book UFOs and Nukes.
Sure.
Because he says there are lots and lots of documented cases of a bunch of guys in the field witnessing something, and something a little more intimate than just a saucer darting across the sky. Something a little more involved.
Yeah.
And the armed forces will break them up, send them all to different duty stations, and try to keep them apart from one another. And in most cases, like Toby and I really couldn't reconcile that emotion, but I wanted nothing to do with the guy. And I don't
Very, very strange. Can you tell us about when you asked a friend in the FBI to look for Toby?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry, that was your original
looking
question.
back, why you think things turned out the way they did?
Yeah. Late 80s, I was working with a law firm and doing some work on a case involving the FBI. And I met this guy, I call him Frank. Good guy. He was a lawyer before he joined the FBI. And we just kind of hit it off. And maybe every other week or so, we'd meet at the pub, Friday afternoon, have a cocktail, talk about the week, debrief, that kind of thing.
Right.
So I had tried to contact Toby. I tried to find his wife. I could not. So I decided, hey, I bet Frank could find him for me. So I asked him, I said, we're at the bar, and I said, hey, could you do me a favor? I said, I'm trying to find a guy I was in the Air Force with. Do you think you could find him? And this is kind of FBI humor. He says, oh yeah, I can find him so long as they're not a fugitive. That's feign a laugh because that's what they do, kind of.
I've actually heard that before from a buddy of mine whose daughter was at the FBI. I've heard that before. Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of like high on their list of job duties. So he's like, yeah. He says, I can't open a case for you, obviously, but he says, I've got resources. I can take a look at it for you and see if I can find a guy. And he says, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go write down on paper absolutely everything that you can think of about this guy. What he liked, what he disliked, physical description, pictures if you have them, everything you can tell me about the guy. Put it on a piece of paper. And it's amazing how much you know about somebody after working with them, especially on a night shift for 3 years. So I put all that together, dropped it off at his office in an envelope marked, for his eyes only, and didn't hear from him. And a couple of weeks passed, and then I saw him at work, and he's like, "Hey, let's go to the bar tonight and have a cocktail." He said, "I got some news about your buddy." I'm like, "Great." And I wanted to say, well, what'd you find out? But it wasn't really the right place or time. So
Sure.
Met him at the bar. Well, actually, he was late, which was uncharacteristic for him. And he strolled in, and I could see by his facial affect that it wasn't going to be good news. He walked in kind of, and walked in and sat down and ordered a drink. And I said, well, tell me, what'd you find out? What's the deal with my friend? And he says, Terry, I got some bad news for you. Your buddy's dead. He was killed in a head-on collision on 94, Highway 94, going out of Flint, Michigan. And I think the year he said was 1994. So years ago at this point. So I like, oh my God. And I'm shaken because I wasn't expecting that. And he's like, to what, Terry? He says, you've been around a block a time or two, your buddy's gone. You just need to accept it and move on with your life. And I'm like, yeah, Frank, thanks. I think that's good advice. And that's what I did. And, I could have so easily have picked up the phone and called the Michigan State Police and verified that information. And I didn't. And I regret that because it would have been a totally different outcome. Because I sure wish we could have got back together to, we should be two old guys sitting around having a barbecue, drinking a beer, and we're deprived of that. We were robbed of that. So Toby's date of death was September 7th, 2004. That's the day that he passed. So he's been gone for a while now. So,
could you talk a little bit about the poison pills, and also about Nurse Janet and what happened when you checked into her?
Oh, I sure will. Oh, I wanted to mention one last thing. And you asked me, why would Frank have that motivation to do that? I think that's important to add. And it's my belief, and it's just an assumption on my part, but I think it's a good one. Somewhere on the federal side of things, there's a file with Toby's name and my name on it. And maybe a note, maybe a Post-it note. These guys shouldn't get together. Whatever reason, I'm sure there's a program for it, a protocol. But that's what I think happened. And that's the reason why. And poison pills. Oh my God. Yeah. We both spent 3 days and 2 nights in the hospital. And we had 30 days off duty because we were just sick. And they discharged me to home with a, the brown smoke plastic thing big jar of pills,
Yeah.
and they were capsules with instructions to take 3 a day. And I asked a doctor that I knew, hey, what are these for? You know what these are? And he's like, I don't know, they're to help you get better. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I can't really interrogate a superior, so, what the heck, And I took these home. And now, remember, at this point, I've been ordered to have no contact with Toby because the Air Force wants to keep us apart. They cut orders for him to go to Japan at light speed. And while those orders were pending, we were to have no contact with one another. Because I was really tempted to call him up on the phone and ask him, are you feeling funny taking these pills? Actually, I didn't notice. It was actually my wife that noticed it. Mm. And about 4 days in, I'm taking one with each meal, 3 a day. And about 4 days in, my wife sits down with me and says, I don't want you to take this personally, but I think these pills are making you stupid. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, tell me what you've done in the past 48 hours. I'll watch TV. I couldn't balance a checkbook. Had no interest in reading anything. I was just out of it.
So these pills were literally dumbing you down.
They sure were. They certainly were. And I called. I stopped taking them immediately. There was a knock at the door. To put this all in context, there was a knock at the door, and I answered the door, and a woman in a nurse's uniform was there, and she had no name tag, no insignia of rank, and she said, "Hi, I'm Nurse Janet. I'm here for your pill count." Wow. And kind of just strolls right in. And I sit down at the kitchen table, and she said, "I need your bottle of medication," and I gave it to her. And she had a little thing like pharmacists use. She dumps them all out. She's got a little blade, and she counts them all. Makes some notes in a little folder, puts the pills back in them, puts a lid on it, and said, "I'll see you tomorrow night, right after dinner." And she came every night after that, and always did a pill count. Never once took my blood pressure, never once asked me how I felt. And there were a couple of things that really raised my suspicions about Nurse Janet, and that was, number one, I knew everybody in the hospital squadron. I mean, we weren't that big at this point in time.
And plus, as a medic, the training you have and the interaction that you have to be interacting with the whole staff.
Yeah, she should have been on the team.
But you were in the medical battalion, right?
Yes, I was a member of the Whiteman Air Force Base Hospital Squadron. Mm-hmm. So everybody affiliated with the hospital in any way, shape, or form, I would know. And she wore no insignia of rank. Now, what I don't understand is I was working on a SAC base. And there's only 2 gates to get into it.
That's a Strategic Air Command Base.
Strategic Air Command Base, yeah. SAC no longer exists, but at the time we had nuclear-armed B-52s with the KC-135s to give them gas to get back home if there is a home to get back to, and a squadron of Minuteman II ICBM missiles scattered all over the countryside. So security was just super tight. I had a little sticker on my car, and when I would drive my car, and even though I knew these guys, I knew the security police, because a lot of times EMTs and pet cops work together because they respond to auto accidents, heart attacks, all those kind of things. So every time they followed the strict protocol. Had to see my ID, had to look at it, look at me, and that's the only way I could get into the base. So my question is, how'd this woman get in the base? So she either had to have a military ID or she had to have some kind of special pass, because otherwise they would not have let her in. Mm-hmm. So you can't just drive in. I was living in NCO housing at the time, as was Toby.
So when you looked into her, what did you find?
I called an RN that I knew at the hospital. We were on pretty good terms together. And I called her from my house, and I think she knew that I was under OSI scrutiny. Because I said, hey, Janet, how you doing? Hey, these pills I'm taking, you know what they are? The pills I got on discharge? Because I had a physician's desk reference. I mean, at the time, this is before internet, there was a book published. It's still published probably online now, but called...
It's published every year in hardback for doctors.
Is it still hardback? Okay.
Yeah.
And it's got a glossy picture in there of every single pill that's in every formulary in every medical facility in the United States, authorized by the
That's been
FDA.
authorized by the FDA.
Right on. So I got the pill and I can't find it. It's
Wow.
just a generic capsule with a white powder inside.
Wow.
So it was specially made somewhere. So I called up Nurse Janet at work and got a hold of her, and I said, "Yeah, hey, how you doing? I had a question for you. What are these stupid pills they gave me?" And she says, "I don't know anything about that." And she says, "But I'm going to get off tonight, and maybe I'll swing by, say hi to you and Sheila." I'm like, "Cool, I'll have a cold beer for you." She's like, "Good, I'll take you up on that." So she came by the house, came in the door, gave us both a hug. She was a very good friend. And we sat down to talk. And she said, "Terry, I don't know where those pills came from. They're not
Now,
in our
this
formula."
is not Nurse Janet.
Oh, no, my mistake. I'm sorry. I'm calling her Janet. The nurse that I was in contact with at the hospital, I prefer not to use her name. So I was just grasping for one. So
Right.
I forget what I used in the book. I'm going to call her Carol. So,
Carol.
Sorry for the confusion. I'm so glad
Okay,
you caught that.
Janet is Nurse X, and Carol is your buddy, your friend, your colleague
Yes.
on base.
Yes, and I'll call her Carol. That's the lady that I spoke to while she was on work at a shift. That's the lady Carol said that she would stop by the house when she got off work and have a beer and talk with me, because it was obvious she didn't want to talk to me over the phone.
Yeah.
So I said, "Well, just make it after 6:30, because that's the time that Nurse Janet came and did my pill count." So 7 o'clock, knock at my door. I get up, and it's Nurse Carol. And I said, "How you doing?" She came in, and we talked for a moment. And I asked her, I said, "Are these pills in Whiteman Air Force Base? Are they in their formulary? I mean, are they specially made and in their formulary recognized for something or other?" And she says, "They didn't come from our pharmacy." She said they came from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't mean anything to me at the time. I mean, years later, of course, it sounds like there's a lot of weird things going on with Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. But that's where these pills came from. And they were repackaged under Whiteman Air Force Base pharmacy with a sticker on them. So, my God, I wish I'd saved just one of those pills.
Wow.
Just one. I
Now,
wish I'd saved a souvenir.
Just to add a little nuance, how often did she come for the pill counts, and were you changing the pill count? I mean, you said you stopped taking them at some point.
Yeah, my wife and I talked about this because I had a concern. What if she wants to see me take a pill? She's like, "Well, you can do two things. You can take one maybe, or you could try to, hide it in between your cheek and your gum and take a swig of water and lift up your tongue and say, But luckily she never asked that. She never asked to see me swallow a pill. All she did was the pill count. So what I would do is, with every meal, 3 times a day, I would throw one down the toilet or the garbage disposal, whatever's handy. And so the pill count would be spot on, and there'd be nothing to question. And so I wondered all these years, if my friend Toby took those, what effect would it have had on him and his psyche and his intellect and his character?
The neurological pathways, his decision making, everything.
Yeah.
And we'll circle back around to get more information about Toby. I wanted to mention that often books and movies that are written by former members of the armed forces have to be okayed by their previous employers. Were you approached by friendlies or non-friendlies after your first book came out and became an Amazon bestseller, or the second?
I was never approached, but I had some kind of very low level clearance, at least, so if, like, guy fell and broke his leg in a missile silo once. I had to be, cleared to go in and do my job, at least to that extent. But that was an extreme rarity. I just didn't go any place where security was an issue, and so I didn't need a clearance. And I also never signed an NDA. So, I got to tell you, even if I'd signed an NDA, I'd have still gone ahead and published the book. Now, I know someone, and his name is Matthew Roberts, and he was a former naval intelligence officer. And he has a book out called, I believe, The Initiate. I wrote the foreword to his book. And just like John Bolton had to have his book on Trump vetted by the DOJ, this guy, Matthew Roberts, had to have his book vetted by the Department of Naval Intelligence.
And this is the case that you have in the book, because after your first book, you got something like 1,300 emails from people, and you sort of go over 30 of, I guess, what you considered the best cases, and his is number 25, Intelligence, A Hero's Journey, and he was on the USS Roosevelt. Is that right?
Sure enough. Yes, he was. And, the guy has all the integrity in the world. He called me in late 2018 and said, hey, look, vet to vet, I need to talk to somebody. You've been down this road, you published a book. I'm in a little different situation, and that I'm part of DNI, and I want to publish this book, and I have to turn in a manuscript first. And I said, well, can you tell me what happened? And he says, no. He said, I would love to. He said, I'd love to tell the world.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't do that. I'm under an NDA. They'll lock me up. They'll fine me a fine. I'll never be able to discharge in bankruptcy and never live long enough to pay. So he says, I can't do that. And he didn't. But he did say this. Well, this guy had 16 years active duty, meaning he was 4 years away from retirement. He told me, he said, yeah, I've made a decision. I'm going to leave the Navy. And he said, the stuff that I've seen, I don't want to work with these folks. And so, whoa. And I said, well, that's your call to make. You only have 4 years. Can you gut it out for 4 years? Don't throw all that active duty service time away. And he says, no, I can't do it. Can't do it. They took him off ship. He lost his sea duty pay and stuck him on a desk in DC. And
so we hope he sells a lot of books.
We hope he sells a lot of books. He deserves it. He handed his manuscript in, and I'm sure it was extremely well written. And what he got back.
What's the name of his book?
It's called Initiated.
Initiated. Is that
Initiated?
It?
INITIATED. Initiated.
That's him. Yes.
Yep, I just found it, and you wrote the forward, Terry.
I did.
All right, and that went to the card. Check it out now.
Yeah, he's a really good guy. You might want to have him on sometime.
Well, if you can put me in touch, absolutely.
Yeah, can do. I'll shoot you an email.
Cool.
But he told me, I said, I wasn't going to try to beg him to tell me. But he called me up after they vetted his book and gave him back, 300 and some pages of black ink. And
they redacted that much?
Oh, they redacted every. Let me put it this way. These are his words. Everything that's cool, everything that's mind-blowing and truthful and for real that the public should know, I can't say. It's
Wow.
all blacked out.
Wow.
So all that was left were a few of his, he had some pretty strange personal interactions with E.T., including a blue lady. I don't want to give away too much from the book, but he's also really big into Greek philosophy. And so, some people, whenever they have an event like this in their life, they fall back on religious anchors of some kind. Yeah, that's him. But this guy doesn't have that. So his source of comfort and guidance has been Greek mythology. So he talks a lot about Greek mythology, which is way over my head, but it's still an interesting read.
I have such a passion for Greek mythology that I aced my high school mythology class and didn't do a single bit of homework.
Whoa, that means you did reading.
Yeah, I cut my teeth on that stuff.
Seneca and Marcus
mythology.
Aurelius, I'm down with. Stoicism, I'm down with that. But outside of that very narrow parameter, I have no clue.
So I'm going to ask the next question, Carlson. In the reckoning, well, you mentioned that you still suffer from PTSD. To this day, you might not walk in an open field, even if you have to walk around longer. And
that's right. I think I even mentioned that in our last show. That I'd walk around. I'd walk a mile and a half to cut around, rather than be out in the open and be exposed. And I think that goes back to when we were stuck in the tent. And my car was 15 yards from the tent, and I just could not. I felt, all I had was a piece of canvas over my head, but I felt like it gave me cover, and I didn't want to be out in the open and feel exposed.
You were bivouacked down.
Yes, I was, and I wasn't going to go anywhere till daylight came, till the sun came up. But my friend talked me out of it, and probably for the best, we got out of there.
So could you kind of recap a little bit more, like, what do you think, like, how do you think that the experience in the beginning of the book that you talk about led to the ongoing symptoms you have to this day? Like, you don't want to feel trapped, you don't want to feel...
Yeah, a couple of things. I'm 67 years old now, and I sleep with the light on, and I can't sleep with the light off, and I can't walk into a dark room. I have a really tough time spending the night alone in a motel room. It's just hard. And I wear earphones. I sleep with, it goes all the way back to the Walkman days when I'd sleep with a cassette tape and a Walkman, just to keep the ambient noise, creaks and stuff in the house, keep them from happening. And then if I hear them, then I get freaked out. Then I got to get up and I got to go check everything out. Yeah, there we go. I got those now.
Yep.
I got them now. Yeah, love them.
Boy, those come in handy.
And you know what else? I think I mentioned this last time too, and that was naked store mannequins. And I know that's a weird thing, but I walked past a display window around Christmas time that had some naked mannequins, and all kind of contorted positions with no wig, no clothing on, and
they're creepy. I mean, there's a Twilight Zone episode about how creepy they are.
I forgot about that. There is.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah. Take the elevator to the 6th floor or something, if I remember.
Yep.
So yeah, I got a few PTSD symptoms that I deal with. I'm sure not nearly as many as a lot of poor folks have that have been through, horrendous things like combat. I'm fortunate enough I've never had that experience.
I would submit that your experiences are more severe than combat, and that if you had both experiences, the one that we're discussing now would probably supersede, any problems that you had in combat. But I suppose we'll never know about that.
Yeah, thankfully not. Yeah.
In the part of the book called First Contact, you describe not monkey men, as we discussed the last time that you were on, but that you had a bedroom visitation of 4 2-foot-tall monkeys with tails and glowing yellow eyes, wearing paper masks with broad grins painted on them.
That's right.
In retrospect, was this a screen memory, and why do you think they appeared this way instead of the typical small gray?
I think they appeared that way somehow they knew how to appear to me in a way that I'd find the most benign. I think that they're that advanced, that intelligent. Because when I saw them, instead of being freaked out, oh my God, there are monkeys in my room, I thought they were kind of comical at first. After a while, not so much. But one of the nightmares that I have still is that the the monkey that was always nearest the head of my bed would hold out a paw and telepathically ask, "Gonna come with us tonight, Terry? Come with us. We'll take you back. We'll get you back in time," and hold that paw out. And in the nightmare, same scenario, but instead of holding a paw out, it's four gray long fingers. And I still have that nightmare, once or twice a year, and I just flip out.
Gary Ambrosia from the chat says, at Terry Lovelace, have you ever been out to Superstition Mountain near Gold Canyon, Arizona?
I have not. I would love the opportunity to go. Isn't that where the M-shaped cave opening was and the guy went missing? Wasn't that
Could be.
Superstition Mountain?
Could be. I know it's something that Gary Ambrosia has had experience with, so I think that that he has some more to say on that. And Brian Rizzo says, I have PTSD problems. I have to sleep with a fan, and I don't do well in crowds.
Yeah. I think it's that the fan. I agree with that. If I don't have headphones, I would rather have a fan going, something to give just to drown out the creaks and the normal sounds that a house makes.
Sure.
I mean, I agree with that. I empathize with you.
Yeah. Terry, can you tell us about the dozen or so kids that you joined for playtime with Sue? And what happened in that secret school, and how often did they occur?
I sure can. This is stuff that became more clear in my mind after I published the book. Publishing the book for some reason was like opening a door. It just like they tell you don't call the name of a demon. Well, I guess I didn't call the name of a demon, but I stirred stuff up somehow.
When you look into the abyss, it looks back at you.
Sure enough. And I've had over the years, over the past 45 years, I've had some experiences that are paranormal is too broad of a term, but I've had almost like poltergeistish kind of stuff happen, where and it doesn't matter which house we live in, it doesn't matter which TV we're watching at the time. My TV will turn itself on between 2 and 4 a.m.
Still?
It still does, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it hasn't in the past probably 8 months, but I won't say once a year, but almost. But it's happened so often over the years now, my wife and I don't freak out about it anymore. It's just like whoever's the more awake of the two gets up and grabs the remote, shuts the TV off. And I always make a point of saying out loud, knock it off.
Yeah.
Now, does that help? I don't know. It helps me.
I had, when I was a kid, some kind of electrical imbalance, and TVs used to turn on when I'd walk past them all the time. Fortunately, I grew out of that.
Did you ever have the street lights go out as you walk underneath them?
Yes, and on all the time.
Oh my God! When I had a girlfriend, one of my just great relationship we had, and she has told us very similar experiences. You did TV between 2 and 5 in the morning. She gave her, I think she called him George, but and then the weirdest things is that she would say the same thing, that the lights would go out on the street. And one night we were together, we were by my car making out, and she says, I feel George is here. And I said, what are you talking about? She says, if he is, the light might go out, so don't freak out. Not 10 seconds later, poof, just one light, and it was the light closest to us, to the left, went out. That one street light. All the other street lights were fine. And then when I said goodbye, the damn thing came back on.
I mean, how does that work?
I was so, and she said, "Calm down, don't freak out. He's been with me for almost 20 years, since I was a little girl."
It's just an electrical imbalance that happens to a lot of sensitive people, sensitives, and I'm certainly one of those. Mike, do you want to ask the follow-up to that?
Well, sure. Sue told you could you talk about this this part where that Sue told you as a hybrid, "Hey, I'm incapable of bearing children"?
Yeah, that happened when she appeared in my living room in October of 2017. And we were having a telepathic conversation. And for some reason, I have feelings for this. I call her a woman. I don't have romantic feelings. I have kind of maternal feelings for this woman. And I felt compelled to tell her about my kids. So I did, just briefly. And she replied back matter-of-factly. She said, "I'm a hybrid. I'm incapable of bearing children." And having hugged her once or twice, I can tell you that her torso is like that. I mean, it's like long, spindly arms, long, spindly legs, oversized head, I think for our gravity at least. But yeah, that was the scenario where she told me that.
Wow.
Very interesting. I'm going to post this link in the chat, and I'm also going to bring up the Jerusalem Post article. Please talk about the retired Israeli general and former defense minister Chaim Eshed and his comments about the former president's plan for disclosure that would have coincided with the 2020 election, and what happened to that plan.
I'm familiar with Chaim Eshed, and I read that article hot off I was reading the Jerusalem Press off of my laptop one morning, like I often do. I like alternative sources for news. I like Reuters, AP, Jerusalem Post, Al Jazeera I'll watch. But I like to watch a blend, so I make sure I'm getting somewhat the real deal. This guy, and I have friends in Tel Aviv, and I called him up and I said, "What is the deal with Chaim Eshed, whoever this guy is? Is he a kook? Well, who is he?" He says, "Nah, man, he's like our John Glenn. You know, he's well respected. He teaches a university. He ran the space program for Israel, and Israel has one, and well respected. Not a kook, a real down to earth, intellectual guy." And I think that there was something planned that went off the rails. And I wouldn't even begin to speculate on what that might have been, but that's what I think. And that's what my friends in Tel Aviv think.
Yeah, I have family in Tel Aviv, actually.
Do you? Good. Why?
Yeah. I would play the audio here, but I don't want to get a copyright strike, so people can check that out. I put the link in the chat, and it's right here. And if you'd like to listen to it or read more, anybody, then you're certainly welcome to do so.
I'd love to get Chaim Eshed and Avi Loeb together.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Oh, would that be cool or what?
Ooh.
Along with the follow-up question, what happened to that plan? I also wanted to ask, do you think this has something to do with the Space Force?
God, I'd be just speculating. The timing is curious.
Mm-hmm.
And, we have a Space Force. I don't know exactly what their mission is. I mean, they have a mission statement, keep things cool in space kind of thing, kind of a broad, sweeping. But what are they doing?
I find it so odd because I just took my kid, my 9-year-old, to the Kennedy Space Center, and he's very much up on everything. I mean, he's like, okay, blue, well, whatever the Amazon one's blue, whatever that one rocket is, they're leaving in Texas, and then you've got the Falcons are leaving. I don't know. I'm not sure if I got even have that right, but the whole point of the matter is that you hear about all these rocket launches left, right, and all over, and the Space Force, I haven't even heard one initiative or one press release of anything that they've done. It's absolutely bewildering to me.
Yeah, I agree. I've never seen. I think I saw one recruitment ad. One.
Yeah.
And that was early on, and nothing since. So.
Yep. Well, speaking of things in space, let's talk about Betty, your moon trip, the conversations you had with Betty, and then about the whole aspect about there being an agreement between the hosts and the United States government. Can we talk a bit about that?
Sure, I'd love to. And this is kind of out there, and
That's why we call it Into the Fringe, Terry.
That's right, and it's where we're headed. When I published this book, I had a couple of people call me and say, well, look, we've explored the dark side of the moon. We've mapped every single square inch of it. And I guess my reply to that is twofold. Am did I lose my video?
Yeah, it looks like you
I
did.
think you just got it. You may have accidentally hit the stop camera button on the bottom with your mouse.
I wasn't moving it, but let's try this.
There you go.
There we go. Whoa!
You're back.
My hand was nowhere near my mouse.
I was gonna say that because you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we had another experience.
Yeah.
Anyway, you were saying.
It's those that are listening in. They do things like that.
They do. My phone's haunted too. So
Yeah, I bet.
where was I?
You're talking about Betty, the moon.
Yeah, the moon trip.
Yes, I get a bunch of emails from people saying, well, it's already been mapped. Well, and my reply to that is, look at where we're at with things like camouflage. I mean, that's, what you see is not necessarily what's there. These little beings could appear to me as a child, again, in the way I saw as most benign, as little monkeys. If they can do that, I think it would be pretty easy to hide that. But interestingly, I got almost an equal number. I'd have to count them to find out which ones, in the lead, from people who said, yeah, that mushroom-shaped thing that you said you saw, I saw that. So I don't know. Who knows? Yeah, she told me that the mushroom-shaped thing. Well, let me back up. Let me tell the story about how I came to be in there.
Sure.
Yeah, 1987. It was autumn. It was late September. I'm on a motorcycle ride Sunday morning. It's a routine for me. I talk about this in the first book too. And I'm going around a curve, and I'm throttling back from about 80 to about 60. And in the blink of an eye, I'm suddenly doing 35 on a farm road that's gravel. Now,
Wow.
I never, ever took my bike on gravel. I mean, I could get a paint chip. I didn't want that,
Yeah.
and it's not safe. I like dry asphalt. That's what I want, dry asphalt and some curves and hills. So I thought, man, I assumed that I had absentmindedly, because I could be absent-minded at times, made a turn somewhere and found myself here. But I got to tell you, it's really amazing how seamless the transition is. So when I got home from that motorcycle ride, I had lost 2 hours of time.
Mm-hmm.
And Betty filled me in on those 2 hours. When I got off my motorcycle, I was looking around trying to get my bearings. And it was just corn, late corn on both sides of me, acres and acres and acres, and nothing to see. And then I see a saucer about 60 feet in diameter. I mean, it was big, and about 50 feet off the ground to my left. And I'm not freaked out. I'm not like, wow, look, it's a saucer. None of that. It was just, wow, look at that. And it came over and sat down maybe 10, 15 feet off the ground, absolutely dead silent. And a ramp came down. And I had my helmet in my hand, and I walked up the ramp, and I met Betty, who at this point in time is Sue to me. And I sat next to her, and we chatted. And the inside of this thing looked very much like a home movie studio, because the chairs were kind of it was comfortable seating, and the chairs were kind of stacked. You know what I'm saying? So that, and there was a white domed ceiling, and it was well lit. There were no windows, no sensation of motion whatsoever. It would seat, I'm guessing, 20, 25 people. And there were 4 of us in there. It was Betty, myself, and then there were 2 guys in the front that were dressed like farmers. So maybe we're farm people. I didn't address them. They didn't address me. And we traveled, but again, I had no sensation of motion. And when we got to our destination, and I had no idea where we were going, the same ramp went down, and we exited, and we were in a huge, I thought it was some kind of warehouse somewhere. And Betty took me down a hallway and showed me this enormous panel that was like 60 by 20 feet that showed the stars. And there were like 1 trillion stars. I mean, it was like looking at the center of the Milky Way. And none of them twinkled. They were all static, which means we were outside our Earth's atmosphere.
Right.
And from the corner of my eye, I saw this huge white object roll over in front of us, and I thought it was going to hit us. And it was the moon, and it was white like bright sunlight on limestone. And the line defining the dark side from the white side, light side, it's a bright line distinction. It's just bright.
It's called the Terminator.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
The Terminator line.
The Terminator line. Yeah. It's there's no, it's boom. It's either black or it's white. And
it's either hot or it's cold.
Yes. Works the same way. And I blurted out, it's going to hit us, expletive. And she's like, no. She says, that's the moon. We're moving. The moon is stationary relative to our position. Mm-hmm. And that made sense. And then this thing must have turned, because the stars went out of sight, and then this black line went up, and then I'm looking, and we had to be parallel with the dark side of the moon, looking down. So gravity-wise, I don't know how they worked that out, but that was my orientation. I was standing on the floor, looking out this window, pointed down toward the surface. And I'm wondering, why are we here? There's nothing here. And that's when I think the first thing I saw were 3 dots in the sky that were like saucers that were landing and darting around. They were saucers. They had little lights, 360 degrees all the way around the periphery of the saucer, and they sat down. They sat down like a Harrier jump jet would sit down, came to a halt, and then just sat down, and kept that triangular configuration. And then I saw lights on the horizon. And of course, there's no glow in the sky because there's no atmosphere, but I saw lights. And then this big sprawling, it was like LAX at night, kind of. It was a big complex. And I'm thinking, something doesn't look right here. I mean, just from the standpoint of there were no streets. So it was just this collection of buildings with no discernible roadways or stop signs.
Infrastructure.
Yeah, I thinking back to property law in law school. I mean, you got to have, you got to lay that stuff out on a plat. There's got to be zoning, and well, they had no zoning going on there whatsoever.
Before we go on to the next question, I want to give a chance for Terry if he needs to take a break. It's 8:00.
Good timing. Let me do that. I'll be back in 3 to 5 max.
Take your time. Take your time.
Take your time.
Yeah, we'll talk to the chat. We're going to promote your book a little bit here.
All right. Thanks, guys. I'll be right back.
Yep.
Sure.
So, Cardinal Sin. So we're giving away. Is that a signed copy of Terry's book tonight?
That's correct.
Good Lord! I wish I had known. I just bought his on Amazon, but that's okay. I'm sure I can arrange to get it signed. How exciting!
Well, I've got my copy right here. And that's
Cool.
the second book, the one that we're talking about now. And Terry's first book, Incident at Devil's Den, is a great read, and it was an Amazon #1 bestseller.
Yeah, very highly rated. I was looking at it on Amazon. Great reviews.
Yeah, it does have great reviews. But I'll tell you what, this is a hell of a read. You're really going to enjoy this Mexican Iron Man when you get your copy. This is almost twice as thick as the original book, and it comes with a lot of cases, as I mentioned before, that people wrote in to Terry, and we're going to talk about some of those in the second hour, as well as take some questions from the chat. And he's back.
Thanks. So what'd I miss?
We were just promoting your book and telling everyone that we're going to give away a signed copy. And I told everyone that your book reviews are great on Amazon. My copy apparently will arrive on Saturday. So both of them. I ordered both of them. So.
Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. I hope you enjoyed them.
Well, I've heard you speak before live. To those in the chat, he was at. It's in your intro. If you guys missed the intro at the beginning, Terry has been at He's been at every major convention or event on the topic over the last decade or two. So, Cardinal, where do you want to go next? You want to talk some more about the book, or?
Actually, I was going to ask Terry, can you speak to the section Reptilians and Broken Promises, in which Betty stated that, quote, reptilian entities live in your western desert and have since before man evolved into intelligent beings. You write that she stunned you when she told you that, quote, reptilians feed on blood from cattle and will feed on human blood and tissues as well, unquote, and that they failed to honor the agreed limits on the number of humans that may lawfully be harvested, and likewise the number of cattle from private ranches and federal land is limited according to the conditions in the Eisenhower Accord? That's
my understanding. And again, I want to be clear here. I don't peddle fear. There are too many people out there that do that, and I'm not into that. I don't want to be into that. But I do want to report honestly what I was told, because I was very surprised. I had never heard of the Eisenhower Accord, and evidently sometime in 1955, Eisenhower met with he liaised with ET at some California, some far western Air Force base. I should know more about it, but I don't. But I know what's important, and what she told me was that and there's a couple ways to look at this. We're either working arm in arm with ET toward a shared agenda, or this could be a quid pro quo type of arrangement where we give them people and they give us technology in return. Or number three, they just could be able to do whatever the hell they want to. And the truth is in one of those three. But that page 133, I spell out the things that she confirmed for me. She confirmed that the inside of the moon is hollow, that the moon is a hollow vessel.
Yep.
And that's where the reptilians dwell, is underneath in the moon. And,
and aliens and humans both work there.
Yes. Aliens, I guess, in the Space Force or its precursor.
Or the secret space program. Yeah.
Yeah. She confirmed for me the existence of the secret space program, number one. Number two, that extraterrestrials and human beings live on and inside the moon. Three, that extraterrestrials reside inside the Earth and have free reign to abduct cattle and humans by some kind of written agreement from 1955 with Eisenhower. And then four, she inferred,
implied.
and it was by inference. It wasn't so of the four, this one is an inference, not really she didn't state it plainly, but yeah, she inferred that the existence of a global ruling council, or a cabal, I hate that word, but a global ruling council. And she said something interesting. She told me that the face of politics is not the true face of government, that there's somebody else pulling the strings. And, whatever outcome happens is the outcome that they want to have happen. And that kind of shocked me, because that's a lot to process.
Indeed.
So, yeah, I found this on my own. That in 1901, what's his name? The science fiction writer,
Jules Verne?
Yeah, no, H.G. Wells is the one I'm thinking of. H.G. Wells in 1901 wrote The First Men in the Moon.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1901, he wrote a story about the moon being a hollow artificial vessel, and we go there, we go inside the moon, and we fight a battle against the reptilians. And it was in 1901. How crazy is that?
And that's not the only story that H.G. Wells nailed on the head. He had access to some kind of Akashic record or something. I don't know.
That fascinates me. As a kid, I read everything I could find by what's his name?
Wells?
No, not Wells. The Sleeping Prophet.
Edgar Cayce.
Edgar Cayce, thank you. Yeah.
And Anti-Derivative Jill mentions, yes, he also predicted the lunar lander.
Boy, that he did.
Pretty amazing.
I find it fascinating also that the modern rockets of the private sector are landing just like they were envisioned in the 50s.
Yeah. I never thought about the parallel with the 1950s movies, but yeah, you're absolutely right. How cool is that?
Yeah. There's so much knowledge that we have yet to that we need to discover. I believe, like in the case of the example that we were just talking about from 1901, I think there is this knowledge that it's been out there, and it's been suppressed. And if except and unless for what I would say the real heroes, people like you, that are willing to share their stories, so that we all can become aware of what has happened, what is happening, we would never will really understand the truth. We'll always be blind. And so thank you.
I
Um,
appreciate that.
Let me ask you about the incident in 1977 with Toby that occurred in the Arkansas State Park adjacent to Ozark National Forest. Um, let's see. The notes are then David Paulides' fourth book, The Devil in the Details. He investigates missing people. He talks. Oh, I could do this without looking at the notes. David Paulides has different clusters. I would like to ask you about how you think any of these things dovetail. Like when you look at your incident in 1977, some of these disappearances, the missing 411. I don't know how knowledgeable you are about that body of work by David Paulides, but what's your sort of take in terms of all of this?
David Paulides, I don't know personally. I planned to meet him at the Ozark convention, and then it went virtual, and I lost that opportunity. But I am familiar with his work. I've read several of his books, including Volume 4, which is The Devil is in the Details. And David Paulides is an amazing guy. He's a real data-driven guy. He'll make, like I would do, he'd make a spreadsheet. And
he does YouTube videos about 3 times a week, and I don't miss a single one.
Really? I gotta look those up. I gotta
He
start
has
watching
his own channel, and they're just amazing.
Oh, is that AmCan or something like that?
Can-Am missing 411. CANAM.
Like Canada American.
Can-Am missing 411. The problem is there's a lot of fake ones, but you just got to go the one that actually has his seal from his books and the one that has his face on it. There's a lot of people that rip his stuff off.
Yeah. Well, that Volume 4, The Devil is in the Details, he talks about little Catherine Van Alst, the little girl that I found on my own, before he wrote Missing 411, from an article in the Pittsburgh Press and the Kansas City Star. And there's been a lot of crazy things happen in that park. I don't know if it's on a ley line. I don't know what it is about the place, but it's a little different. But yeah, I think there's something. You look at David Paulides' work, and you'll have some kind of idea how many people in this country go missing every year. And you know what? It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's really spooky. I mean, people report looking over their shoulder to see the person behind them, and 3 seconds later they'll look over their shoulder again, and that person's gone.
Yeah.
And you also say in the book that you feel lucky to be alive. Do you think that these disappeared people that Paulides writes about are taken by the aforementioned reptilians?
I don't know. I didn't see any reptilians, but then again, I only have fragmented bits and pieces of memory. So I can't, I obviously I didn't see everything. But that would be, an assumption. There were other people that were similarly situated as Toby and I. They were there, they were nude, they were holding their clothing in their hands, and they were lined up in rows and columns. And they redressed us and kicked us off of that thing, dragged us back to the tent. But how about those other poor people that were in there? So you mentioned survivor's guilt. This is where I feel some survivor guilt. And that is that we went home. Where did those poor people go? They went up. And I don't think they were Ubered home. I think that they went somewhere likely against their will. Yeah.
Yeah.
Men, women, and children.
You write in the book that you asked Betty why we stopped going to the moon, and that she told you that there is a secret space program and that both humans and ETs are there to mine helium-3 from the moon rocks. Can you go into detail about that?
I sure can. I had never heard of helium-3 until I looked it up. And she told me that it's a gas that's locked inside the rocks, as I state in the book. And because of that, rocks are heavy, gas not so much. So they process it on the moon. And that's that big industrial complex on the far side. And it's shared by several different races of ET, including us. That's what she told me. Now, what's interesting is I just saw a news story that I about jumped out of my window. I was just recently they announced that there is a sealed container from one of the moon missions that has, quote, some moon rocks in it, and they're analyzing it to determine the content of the gas that's locked inside the rocks. And they'll have NASA will have the results in 3 to 6 months, was the end of the story. So how much you want to bet that they say, oh my God, there's helium-3 in here. We could use that gas for clean fusion and then have, an inexhaustible source of energy. Clean, no radiation, no bad stuff.
Yep.
Helium-3 is used for fusion. Yes. Did I say
Yeah.
fusion? Did I say fission?
No, you said fusion.
Okay. Yeah. I get the two mixed up.
It's easy to do. But the point is that helium-3, being a fissile material, doesn't generate ionizing radiation or radiation of any kind. So it's perfectly safe. If something were to happen, like it overheats or melts down or whatever, no big deal.
Turn off the stove. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So she confirmed that there's a secret space program and that extraterrestrials as well as human beings live on and in the moon.
Yes.
That extraterrestrials reside inside the Earth and have some free reign to abduct humans and cattle by written agreement. And she implied the existence of a global ruling council or cabal, and that some in the secret space program serve on the moon for life. How did these ideas, which you previously relegated to conspiracy theories, affect you when they were confirmed to be real?
I think I say in the book, I think I'll say all 3.5 of them. The idea that there could be some kind of global ruling council or something, the Bilderbergs or whatever that is, I might entertain some of that. That would be a subset of number 4, or that would be number 4, I guess. But 1, 2, and 3 on page 133, the space program, the living inside the moon and on the moon, and extraterrestrials having free reign to abduct human beings, all those 3 things, I would have relegated every bit of that to science fiction, overactive imagination.
Mm-hmm.
Show me some facts. Show me some. Yeah. Show me something.
And it's interesting because in Ingo Swann's last book, Penetration, he talked about his experiences when someone in the military gave him coordinates for remote viewing, and he, did his thing and said that he saw aliens and naked human beings working together inside the moon, and that one of the aliens looked directly at him where he was observing, and he broke off the remote viewing because it freaked him out.
Wow. I didn't know that. I know Simeon Hine pretty well, who worked with Ingo. And I'm familiar that there was an exercise done. I don't know who the viewer was, but they gave him map coordinates. But the map coordinates weren't for Earth. They were for Mars. And he saw, post-apocalyptic, dystopian, ruined culture, with people cold and huddled in brick buildings and starving and freezing to death and just a wasteland.
Yeah, and I believe it was not only on Mars, but it was 1 million years ago.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's what I remember. And there's a scientist out who has taken samples. They have samples from Mars, And he says that they don't even need samples. All they need is a Geiger counter. There's a certain type of radiation that's produced when you have a plutonium bomb and it explodes, and that's in the atmosphere of Mars. And God, I
Yeah,
wish I could think of the
actually,
guy's
according
name.
to John Alexander's research, there are two places on Mars where there are noble gases like xenon that can only be created by a nuclear detonation, like a hydrogen bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of bombs and world and planet, in 2019, scientists reported that we're past the tipping point of climate change, and this is another conversation you had with Betty. Um, and there's this whole dialogue about resources perhaps being relocated to Mars, and certainly Cardinal Sin and others have always made the point, hey, the way we're treating this planet, you think we'd have another one to go to. Now, in your conversation with Betty, it seems that we have. And of course, the literature, YouTube videos, TV shows, there's an abundant number of contactees and experiencers who have consistently talked about the conversations about nuclear war and taking care of the planet and the environment. What are your thoughts about all these types of dreadful, ramifications in terms of where we're at, where we're going, and whether or not there is somewhere else to go to?
Okay. Yeah. Let me kind of take that in order. Um, according to Betty, I guess a limited number of people would be able to go to the moon. But my feeling is, and I wish I'd addressed the question directly, what about Mars? And but something tells me that Mars is where everyone's going to go. I mean, everyone that has the money and is connected, those are going to be like the lifeboats off the Titanic. And, the rest of us here are going to be just relegated to steerage. And you know what happened to the Titanic.
You mentioned in the book that the rest of us will be doomed and not survive.
Yeah, I think that's a possibility. I do. You know what I noticed? Look at all the countries that are scrambling to get to the moon now. India, China, Japan, United States, European space, whatever they're called. Everybody
Agency.
wants to get to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And, then I try to think that one step further. What do you want to get to the moon for? Well, it's either to mine helium-3, or it's a great jumping off point to get to Mars. And I don't know. I think Mars is going to be the future of humanity. Betty made I asked her about nuclear weapons and war, and she took on a real sad facial affect. And I'm an empathetic person. I mean, I could feel her sadness, and I have no idea what this means. Maybe a physicist would. She told me that nuclear detonations anywhere in the universe cause, her words, interdimensional bleeds.
Mm.
Now, I don't know what that is exactly, and it's probably above my pay grade to understand it, but it's obviously not a good thing.
Well, let's talk about Betty's gift, a way to say thank you for being a lab rat.
I did, because like so many people out there, and I found out I'm not alone. I don't know if you guys have ever interviewed Deb Cobble.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you've interviewed Deb, I believe, haven't you?
I think that she was on with you in our abduction roundtable.
That's exactly right. That's why I know that. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've known Deb since 2018, and she was Kathleen somebody in Bud Hopkins' book.
Oh, she was Kathy Davis in Intruders.
That's it. Thank you. And she's an amazing woman. Yep. Great book.
It is a great book.
So we talked about some of that stuff on the roundtable, the stuff on the roundtable discussion. We just didn't touch on all of it.
What was her gift as a way to say thank you for being our lab rat?
Oh, her gift.
Mm-hmm.
Her gift, I believe, and again, I can't speak for her. I can only say what I think, but I think her gift was, her increased intuition. I'll call it that instead. I won't say psychic powers, but increased intuition, like through the roof. And, Deb is a former auto worker, and I've known a lot of auto workers, having lived in Michigan, and they're mostly good people. And, she's a member of Mensa. And I think that ET may have tweaked us in some way. I don't want to just come out and say, ET made me smarter, but ET might have made me smarter.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of evidence that they hurt people. They do pain experiments on people. Some abductees are, unfortunately relegated to a lifetime of these pain experiments. And in other cases, they cure people. People who were blind from birth can see, at least allegedly. In this book, The Reckoning, you go into detail about 30 cases that you gleaned from 1,300 emails that you got from people after publishing Incident at Devil's Den. Let's spend the rest of our time focusing on those.
Oh, I'd love
now,
to.
I don't want to give away the entire book, so just go into detail on what you would like or remember about these, and as we can't cover them all, we'll just select a few and circle back on the ones you'd like to talk about.
Sure. Let me jump right in.
Yeah, the first one is the Christmas store. This was Olivia in Henderson, Nevada. Please tell us about that case.
Sure. I believe it was 2019, mid-2019, that I got an email from Olivia. And she's a 76-year-old woman from Henderson, Nevada. She's got a degree in fine arts. And she told me that she and her husband had an interesting experience in 1968. And she told me that she read my book. She said she doesn't read a lot of this kind of genre, but she read my book for whatever reason. And she was particularly taken with the idea of missing time. So she started this an email back and forth. Well, tell me your story. Tell me what you remember. And oh wow, yeah, yes, sir. So her story is that in 1968, she's living in Las Vegas, Nevada, with her husband, who passed away in 1983, I believe she said. And they have friends and family in Reno. So once a month, he's a nephrologist, a kidney doctor. And he has a lot of hospital time and he has a lot of office time. And doctors, they work 70 hours a week. But part of his contract with this group that he worked for was that every month he'd get 1 4-day weekend. No call, no beeper, no nothing, just free. So they lived for these long weekends. And every month, once a month, they do the exact same thing. It was habit. They would take off whenever, usually about 3 p.m, and start a 4-day weekend. And this particular 4-day weekend in 1968, they got a late start because he got held up at the hospital. And they almost canceled, but they didn't. And they made the trip. And she said it's 240 miles. And there's a little town about halfway. And I can't remember if she said Tonopah or Tunapa. I pronounced it both ways and been called out on it for mispronunciation, whichever way I say it. So now I just kind of can say Tonopah or something. So little town is still there. And back in the day, there was like a truck stop there with a restaurant. called the Stagecoach. The truck stop is still there today, only it's called the station now. So I'm told. And they would drive from Vegas. It's somewhere close to a halfway point. Stop at Tonopah and get some gas, eat a meal, get back in the car, and then head for Reno, where they would spend, a couple nights at the Hilton or someplace nice. I think she said the Hilton. I don't know. And that was their weekend. So on this particular weekend, they got a late start. So it was normally evening. Now it's dark by the time they get there, and they take their time. They eat a nice meal. They gas up the car. They hop back in, and they're headed for Reno, and they're just a few miles away from Tonopah, and they see this glow on the horizon. And she said, "I had no idea what it was." She said, and remember, this is a trip that for years they've made on a monthly basis, so they knew the landscape, they knew the lay of the land. And they couldn't figure out what this glow was on the horizon. And they crest the hill, and here's a box store about the size of a standard McDonald's, her words, and it's sitting back from the roadway a bit, and it's got like a million twinkling Christmas lights wrapped all around it. Some are flashing, some are blinking, some are static, and on top of the thing, it has a huge neon sign that says Christmas. And she says she was just blown away because she'd never seen, especially in 1968, a store devoted solely to the holiday of Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
So she tells her husband, she says, "Paul, pull over. They look like they're open," because there were lights and the place was all lit up and there were lights inside. And he pulls over, and they're both looking at this thing. Now, she's not sure. She didn't think that they stopped. She thought that the car kind of kept rolling, and they got back on the highway whenever they figured out that there was nothing in front of the place but sand and sagebrush. There was no parking lot. There were no cars. There was no, what she called an egress, because she says, "Well, pull in." He's like, "Well, where do I do that at?" So it's just sitting there in the middle of the desert. And they got bored with it or something. There's a few moments there, and I asked her, I said, "Do you think you had a period of missing time?" And she kind of laughs. We ended up with a phone call, hour and a half phone call. And she says, "Yeah, if one would have missing time, how would one know?" And I'll tell you, that resonated with me because I know the transition from being on black asphalt to that gravel farm road was boom. So she said that her husband said, "We're wasting our time here. Let's head to Reno." So they got back on the road, and she said she slept the entire way. And she said that's the only time in her life she ever did that. She didn't sleep, never slept in the car. This was really time for them to converse, talk to one another, have a dialogue, get caught up on the previous month. So this was valuable time for them. So sleeping was something she just didn't do in the car. And when they got to the hotel room, they didn't bother to unpack like they normally would. They just crashed. They went to bed, and they slept 10 hours. And finally, their friends in town woke them up with a telephone call. And they said that she said that they both felt, quote, out of sorts for about a day. And I said, "Can you define out of sorts for me?" She said, "Yeah, maybe like a mild flu, like body aches and just not feeling well." But she said it only lasted a day. And then we were back to normal. And she said, well, she asked Paul, her husband, "Tell me exactly what you saw." Now, see, what I would have had these guys do is separate, give them each a piece of paper and a pencil, and each have them draw what they saw and define it as well as they could. But they didn't do that. They just talked about it. And there were some differences. He recalled the structure being made out of like rustic barnwood, and she swore that it was a brick structure. But other than that, there was a front porch-like area. they both, their memories were the same on everything except those two details. So they're going back, and she says, on our way back, let's stop. I want to see that. I want to see that Christmas store again. I want to see. And of course, you know the story. It's not there. Yep. It was never there. There never was a Christmas store.
And it's funny. I've read so many books on this topic that sometimes these cases blur together. And I don't remember who it was. It was a woman, but she was driving and saw a very similar thing, a building out in the middle of nowhere that was lit up like I think she said a wedding cake, and it had lights all around it, and it was open in the middle of the night, and she stopped and she went in, and it wasn't a retail store. Joe Salazar has it right here, screen memory.
Seems to be pretty common experience. I think just about everybody that I've ever talked to that has had interaction with ET, I don't think there's any way they can be sure that what they're seeing is legit what they see. I've been doing this hypnosis thing. I think I may have told you, and I had a client who saw me for smoking cessation. Asked me, she says, well, I've read your book. I got a question for you. How do you know that the Air Force didn't implant these memories into your head, and this is all just a dream? And I thought about that, and I thought, you know what? If 1977 were my only incident, I'd say maybe. But, I had the incident as a kid. I had incident in 1987. I've had incidents since. And because of that, in the totality of it, I don't think there's any way that happened. But, I got to say, I don't know.
When was your most recent experience?
April 16th, 2019. And that's also in The Reckoning, where I used to sleep with an iPhone 6 in the pocket of a T-shirt. And it's all shielded because I have heart disease. But I'd sleep with it in my T-shirt and wear some headphones at night.
Got
and
one
listen
right here.
Yeah, right on. It's right on. That's it. And wow. So I woke up April 16th, 2019, short of breath, just absolutely starved for oxygen. And I woke up at 5:55 a.m. And Robert Hastings has some theories about that triple digit thing. For some folks, that's a real thing. It may be. But I woke up at 5:55. I thought I was having a heart attack. I told my wife, call an ambulance. I need to go to the hospital. And she did. And the EMT guys got there, and they gave me oxygen, took my pulse. I was tachycardic, like 180 beats a minute.
Wow.
And just absolutely gasping for oxygen. So they think something's going on. They put me in an ambulance, put me on some oxygen. And on the way to the hospital, I calm down. My heart rate comes down. And that oxygen, I feel like my saturation, because my saturation was like 89% when they got to the house. And by the time I got to the hospital, it was 96. And then shortly thereafter, it was 98. So it was well within normal limits.
Right.
And they, I've had a few heart attacks. I mean, I know the drill. It's an EKG, chest X-ray, and cardiac enzymes. They did all three. Boom, boom, boom. You're good to go. You've not had a heart attack. And honestly, I never had any chest pain. I don't know what I had. But
maybe a little indigestion.
Yeah, maybe. So they sent me home about 7 hours later, and said, "We don't, follow up with your VA cardiologist." Okay. Went home, had dinner with my wife, and then, as is my usual habit, I said, "I'm going to go out and walk around, do my walk." I walk 1.5 to 2 miles after dinner every night, and I got to the street. I pull up. I punch up my iPhone health app, and there's a picture of it in the reckoning.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows that I climbed 6 flights of stairs for the day.
Wow.
And how many flights of stairs were there?
I didn't have any stairs. I live in a Texas ranch. I mean, I have, maybe a threshold about this tall. Other than that, there are no stairs in my home. And I sure didn't climb any stairs at the hospital. Everywhere they took me was either in a stretcher or a wheelchair. And I drove home. Yeah, I don't know if you can focus on that or not, but man, I got to tell you, yeah, there you go. If you look on the left, that's like an XY axis where the vertical axis is in 10-foot increments going up in height. And the other axis, I think it's the x-axis, I get them mixed up. The axis that goes from left to right denotes passage of time. What that spike shows is that between 5:23 and 5:24 a.m., I climbed 6 flights of stairs in under a minute per apple. So at 5:24 a.m., I was sound asleep next to my wife. I didn't wake up until 5:55.
Mm.
So something happened.
Something happened, yeah. So I took the phone. I thought, well, it could be a malfunction. I took it to Apple, and an Apple tech says, like, I'll leave it with me, go have some lunch, come back, I'll tell you what I find. I went back and they said, phone's fine. I said, well, what does this mean on the health app? She said, it means that you or this phone or both of you were 60 feet up between 5:23 and 5:24 a.m.
Ooh.
Yeah. I said, is that measured by GPS? And she says, no, I didn't know this. They measure it. Apple's app measures it by change in barometric pressure. And that's what I said. Is that accurate? And she says, oh, yeah, within an inch or two. It's very accurate.
Yeah, I've seen a trail that was on a previously secret base, undisclosed location, except for the fact that people went for runs in the area around this secret base, and that got reported back to Apple and I guess got leaked out because, like I said, I've seen it. And that's a fairly recent development. I mean, like you said, it's the health app on the iPhone.
Yeah.
There's another case called Pig Roast Interrupted.
Yes.
What stands out to you about that one?
Oh, man, that's a cool story. It's the firefighters. And I forget, I think it was 6 guys. And I changed names, so I have trouble keeping them straight. But the guy that wrote to me, I talked to him. I talked to the guy that owns a restaurant. And I talked to the other kid who is now an Tom or works as an EMT in Arkansas somewhere. But this group of 6, this guy, they're firefighters. They work together. They sleep together, at the firehouse. They, go out and have a drink together. They eat together. They do everything together. It's like being part of a family. That's the way he explained it to me. And he said we were all great guys. We all got along. And I forget the name that I called. Garrett, I think is what I called him because he asked me not to use his name. Garrett said that one of the guys had a hunting camp like 50 miles from town that was out in the middle of nowhere. And they had an old trailer there. No plumbing, just an outhouse. But it was a great place to go and find some game because they had a lot of wild pigs there. So they all got the idea to buy ranch rifles. And they'd all served in the military. They all knew how to shoot a rifle. And they were going to go down and have a pig hunt and come back with, a year's worth of meat each. So that was the plan. So, and he made it, and I asked him, I said, were you guys drinking? Were you guys, smoking weed? Were you guys, what was your frame of mind? And he says, no. He says, look, they drug test us. He says, we can't smoke weed if we wanted to. And he says, yeah, when we're off duty, we might have a beer or two, but none of us are drunks. And I believe that, talking to him. So what they've done is they've gone out and the guy who owned the cabin shot a hog. And they dressed it and they put it on a spit and they were going to barbecue it that evening. And it's getting on into the evening and they're sitting around the fire getting this pig ready, the pig roast ready. And because it's going to take hours to cook the thing. And they see some lights. There's like a pasture or a meadow. And then there is a tree line with some forest. And they saw what looked like somebody with high power flashlights shining lights around. And it didn't make sense. And the guy that owned the cabin, whose family owned the cabin, was irate because the cabin was broken into the year before. Somebody broke in and did some damage. So they were trespassing. So one of the guys had a heart condition. Mel, the guy named Mel, had a heart condition. He was the old guy in the group, and he excuses himself. Had to take a nitro tablet because he had some chest discomfort. Lays down inside the trailer. So this guy is really ticked off because there are trespassers on his land, and he pulls out a 45 and fires like 7 rounds in the sky. Bam, 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 bam. Thinking, well, that'll let him know we're here. Because he just thought, the audacity of them they can clearly see we got a campfire going here. We're here, and they're still out there playing with their flashlights. So lights get brighter. And the guy that fired the 45 in the air takes off and starts walking toward them. He's got a fair ways to go. He starts walking across that meadow. Simultaneously, Billy, the guy who's the cook, went inside the trailer for something, runs out and says, hey, is Mel out here? He's not in the trailer. And everybody kind of freaks out and says, well, let's find Mel. They're worried that, 7 rounds of a 45 shot in the air might give the guy a heart attack. So he said he went to check he told Billy to go check the truck, and he walked down to the outhouse. And the last thing he remembered was he put his hand on a wooden door handle of the outhouse. And he said he can recall feeling the texture of the wood. And then it just lights out. And he wakes up the next morning in like a recliner chair inside the trailer, and it's about daylight, and has no idea what transpired that evening. And Mel is stretched out on the couch. He thought Mel might be dead at first, but Mel was fine. Mel was asleep. And Billy was making coffee, and everybody was up and kind of like rummaging around. And the one guy said, hey, Mel asked, hey, how did the pig turn out last night? And they're like, the pig? Oh, yeah, we forgot about the pig. And they ran outside, and of course, the pig is just burnt embers on one side and just this gray, ugly meat on top. So they had to halt. They hauled it away so coyotes wouldn't come after it. But it's interesting because they all have some missing time. They all, at that point in time, it's all a blank. But what really interested me was the phenomena that I call the band breaks up. And like Ray Fowler's excellent book, The Allagash Four, where you got, 4 guys that hang together, do something, and then everybody goes in different directions. These guys at the firehouse did the same thing. They got other jobs, they drifted away, friendships dissolved, and it was just a weird experience. In a way, reminded me of my interactions with Toby, where on the way back, I felt that something had changed, and I didn't want anything to do with the guy, and I couldn't really reconcile that emotion, but that was for real. And
well, keeping it in the same kind of open range area. What about number 19, Strangers in the Pasture? That one was Johannesburg.
Oh,
South Africa.
That is, yeah. I wish I could have talked to the guy by phone. I probably could have if I'd made more of an effort. His family is in a suburb of Johannesburg, in a rural farm community, and his family has owned this mechanic repair shop. And if it's on wheels, he said, if it's a farm implement of some kind, if it breaks, I fix it. So he said one day he gets a call from a friend of his, and he says, he said, my trailer broke a belt, and I'm out on the south end of my property. Could you fix me up? And guy says, yeah. He said, no problem, because he was familiar with the tractor. He worked on it before. He had a belt in stock that would fit. So he, hops in the Range Rover and drives down there, and sees the guy off in the distance, drives up to him, and he's kind of freaked out. He gets there, and the guy's, in a state, is I think what he said. And, he says, what's wrong? And he says, come with me. And there's a tree line that separates one farm from the next. Now, it's plowed ground where they're at, and on the other side of the fence, it's a meadow, which is grass. So he takes his friend through through this tree line, this brush, pops out on the other side, and there are these 4 bullet-shaped objects that look like they're made out of stainless steel, each one about the size of like a full-size van, and they're spinning. They're all spinning in a clockwise motion fast, and they're all, 3 feet off the ground. And he says, oh, they got to be making a movie here. Where are the cameras at? He doesn't believe what he's looking at. And his friend has his pistol out. I guess everybody wears a pistol there for some reason, but his friend has the pistol out, and he says, put the pistol away. You're gonna shoot me in the arse, you fool, or something like that. And his friend said, I'm not going any closer. He says, well, I'm going to go see what's going on, because he really thought it was a movie. And he walks up to the closest object to him that's spinning, and he called out, phonetically, it's Hayeta, Heyita, Hayeta.
Oh yeah.
It's Afrikaan, obviously. I think the pronunciation's probably right or close. I think, hey, how you doing? So he yells out, and this thing stops spinning, comes to a stop, and he said that a doorway, an arch-shaped doorway, opened up like a camera, iris of a camera, where it just got bigger. And he said that there was a short man standing there, dressed all in silver. And these are his words. He appeared to be of the Mongoloid race, which I guess is South African for Asian, I'm guessing. And has gloves on, like tinfoil gloves too. And he spoke to this guy telepathically. Spaceman says to him, sorry for the trespass. We have a bit of a problem with the machine. We'll fix it and be away shortly. Apologize for the inconvenience. I mean, nothing but polite, right? In English. Heard the guy crystal clarity in his head. And I love this part. He tells Spaceman, he says, well, you know what? I work on machinery quite a bit. Maybe I could give you guys a hand. You want me to take a look at it for you? I mean, just how cool is that? And the guy's like, no, we got it handled. He says, you should go back and take care of your friend. Your friend's not well. And he turned around and went back, and his friend sure wasn't doing well. His friend was, elderly, had some heart problems. And he says, calm down. There's nothing wrong. Nice people, if they're people. And he said a short while later, all 4 objects lifted up simultaneously and just took off 0 to 500 miles an hour and headed for the horizon, and were gone. And what I like about this story is it's the exception to the rule, where the rule is that the band breaks up. There's some kind of wedge that gets driven between these people, and personal relationships go all crazy. And it didn't happen with these 2 guys. The one guy had since passed away, but he said, yeah, we were like 2 old war mates. And they said they'd get together and have a whiskey and talk about it. And, they never told anybody else. And, I told him I feel real privileged. This is something you've never shared with anyone, and you're sharing it with me, and I appreciate that. And I just thought it was a darn cool story. Someone told me that there was a sighting in Canada that was very, very similar to this, and it was for. There's Peter. Hi, Peter. There were 4 stainless steel cylindrical objects in Canada that were spotted, and they made miniature crop circles where they had rotated over the. And he told me, I think his name's Byron. He told me that his neighbor, nothing would grow there. That there was a dead spot of grass where these things were over, and that lasted for a couple of years. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting too.
Well, what we're going to do now is we're going to bring on Canadian Spider-Man, and he's going to help us with the giveaway.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Hi, Cardinal Sin, Mexican Iron Man. Hello, Terry. Hi. Thanks for joining us. That's fascinating today. Thank you.
Do you have the wheel ready?
Yeah, I've just checked with Jill, and I've got the wheel right here. Thanks to her, she's got it right here.
Great.
So I've just tested it. It works great, and I will share the screen with you.
Okay.
With audio, definitely share the audio. Yes.
Yes, we want to have the audio.
The one, yeah, we do, because it's nifty. Okay.
Yep.
There you go.
Maria's feeling lucky.
Well,
all right.
She's due, I think.
I can make that full screen.
Yep. Okay.
Let's go ahead and give her a spin.
All right. Here we go.
Good luck, everybody.
Yeah. Good luck. Oh!
Almost.
Very nice.
I just bought the book, so I probably would have given it up to someone else if I had one.
Congratulations, Gap Stargate.
Yeah, of course you would. Congratulations.
And speaking of promoting his books, can I bring his books up on the screen?
Sure.
Okay. Let's see here. All right, so there's 2 books that I just bought on Amazon. The prior book is Incident at Devil's Den, which is his true story. And let's see, where's my other order here? And then, of course, the book we've been talking about in depth tonight is Devil's Den, The Reckoning. The reviews are absolutely outstanding. And I really encourage everybody to pick up a copy, even if you didn't win tonight. I've got mine, so you should get yours.
Awesome. And there's an audiobook too, if you prefer audiobooks.
Terry, I've really, I have a Kindle subscription. There's just something about having paper in hand. I don't know what it is, but there's just something about having it. Whenever I've read digitally, it just doesn't sink in the same way.
Well, no, I mean, I have an audiobook where I speak, where you could listen to it. Yeah, I agree. I want paper in hand, and reading stuff off a computer screen for me is exhausting. But if you don't feel like reading it at all, or you got a long commute every morning, you get
Oh, I see.
Play it digitally, right. And I recorded it in my voice for better.
Oh,
words.
It's you. So in Audible, it's you reading it.
It's me reading the book.
Oh, yes. That's great. A lot of authors don't do that. That's great. Okay, well, I'll add that to my Audible library.
That's fascinating. Yeah.
That's very cool.
I'll let you gentlemen back to it. Thank you.
Thanks, Spidey.
Yeah, very, very nice. Yeah, thanks for being here. And yeah, Mexican Iron Man always.
You hear me okay?
Always, my brother. Yeah, you're coming in loud and clear, Gil.
All right. So, Canadian Spider-Man, thank you for spinning the wheel. Gap Stargate, you know the drill. Send me your information to my email address, and we will get that to Terry. And
I'll do something cool. I'll make a nice.
Let me open this again. Terry, I just wanted to thank you again so much for coming back into the Fringe to cover your second book, Devil's Den: The Reckoning. Please plug your book, where people can find your work and how they can find your stuff online.
Sure. I have a poorly maintained website at terrylovelace.com. And I have some copies of my x-rays, some photographs,
I can't
some
hear
drawings.
Terry.
I can hear him fine.
Okay. So, how about now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
That's
all right.
my issue.
Both of my books are on Amazon. It's Incident at Devil's Den or
Check
Devil's
1,
Den:
2.
The Reckoning. And they're both either in paper or on Kindle or in an audiobook that I made, that I recorded. So, and then I have a poorly maintained website at terrylovelace.com, and there's some interesting images on there. There's a picture of the craft that we saw that was from a hand drawing I made in August of 1977, a couple months after the event. So that's it. I hope everyone's well. I hope everyone enjoyed the evening as much as I did.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Cardinal, can you hear us yet or not? I guess he cannot. Well, it's a good thing that he brought back his expert co-host tonight, because he can't hear any of us. So I guess I'll close out the show, and we're at the 2-hour mark. So thank you so much, Mr. Lovelace. Terry, thank you.
Thank you,
everyone
Mike.
in chat.
Thanks, Cardinal.
Yeah, thank you, Cardinal Sin.
Well, thanks very much for being on, Terry. We look forward to having you on again soon.
Yes,
And
I'll look
I'd
for an
like to
email.
thank Terry Lovelace, all my mods, and everyone in the chat for being here. And, of course, the great Mexican Iron Man is my expert co-host. And we'll see you all next Wednesday for another trip into the Fringe. And until then, it's Cardinal Sin out.